If you're looking to secure your quick clear of M8S or AAC CM4S or C8S or whatever on earth the people are calling it, I hope this video will be of some help to you. This fight is fast, frenetic, and packed full of the sauce that makes Savage really fun. I'll be showcasing a mixture of gameplay and animated strat diagrams, and talking you through the nuances that I learned during my own blind progression that will help you execute consistently and easily. Please do bear in mind that these strats were created early week 1. Over time, more refined strategies often release as more information and eyes get to experience the encounter. But what we have here works, is consistent, and will get you to the finish line. Let's begin. Before you pull, set up the markers in color pairs like so, with the 4-letter waymarks on cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west, and the numbers on the intercardinals. Assign standard spread, pair, and light party spots to each player in accordance with the most recent encounters. That is, tanks north and south, healers west and east, range spots northwest and northeast, and melee spots southwest and southeast. Pairs are made of 1 support and 1 DPS based on their color quadrant, and light parties are made of a tank, a healer, and 2 DPS. The battle begins with extraplanar pursuit, a raid-wide damage that needs to be mitigated. Shortly afterwards, Howling Blade will cast either Windfang or Stonefang at random. The first thing you want to do is look at the spinning modules around him, his little fake sage weapons. These will shoot out line AoEs during the mechanic, rendering those areas unsafe, and they will shoot either the cardinals or the intercardinals. Solve these mechanics on your color markers. You want to find the spot on your color that will not be shot by one of his lasers and go there. Windfang will do a donut AoE requiring you to be close, and Stonefang will do a circular AoE which you need to move out for. Lastly, Windfang will finish up with pair stacks on either support or DPS, and Stonefang will shoot earth cones at each player. So, you need to stack in pairs for wind and spread for stone. So, check the lasers, then wind is in and pairs, and stone is out and spread. Eminent Rain or Revolutionary Rain is the next major mechanic, introducing itself by telegraphing 3 clones that will soon shoot out from the boss. You need to pay attention to which cast happens here, as it'll dictate what's to come. In both patterns at the end of the cast, they go, placing circular AoEs at the wall where they hit, and there's also a small circle in the middle of the room to dodge, mind you, and the boss will leap to the location where 1 of 3 landed. From here, he'll turn to face the arena, dive through it in a telegraphed line AoE, and here is where which cast occurred matters. In Eminent, he will turn to face the room and do a massive cleave, leaving just spaces to his sides unscathed. Then, he'll quickly cast Wolf's Reign, and when it ends, the 2 party members with the highest aggro, as well as the 2 healers, will take cleaves. Tanks will take theirs solo, using at least their short CD to survive here, whilst healers will want to stack with the 2 DPS from their light party and mitigate. To organise positions, when the boss begins to telegraph his line AoE, look at where he's going to dash. The left light party, aka the main tank H1, M1 and R1, go left, and the off tank H2, M2 and R2 go right. Tanks aim their cleaves at the wall, like so, and the 3-player stack shoot them to the sides. Positioning here is really lenient, so don't worry too much about it. Revolutionary Rain is the same up until the boss dive line AoE, where instead of cleaving, he will blast out a massive circular AoE around him. You need to be on the opposite end of the arena in order to be safe from it, while still spreading to take and not overlap those aforementioned cones. Use the exact same orientation as the other pattern. Look at where he is dashing to. The line AoE itself actually gives you a perfect indicator as to the safe spots for the non-tanks. Just stand next to it, and when it goes off, take a step inside and do your stack there. For tanks it's a little bit trickier, as you need to position yourself on the far left and far right, near the edge of the incoming circle AoE. This may take you a few pulls to get used to, but the frame of reference that can be pretty handy is that after he dashes, the edge of the nib of his hitbox lines up almost perfectly with the start of the unsafe zone. So head to the wall, and make sure you're a step back from perpendicular to it. Tanks definitely have the toughest job here. So to summarize, check the cast to see whether it is close or far, dodge the circular clone AoEs and then the boss's line AoEs, then get into position to take your group cleaves or tank buster cleaves. Another raid-wide follows before the next mechanic, Millennial Decay, begins. This cast triggers more party damage, and a wolf of wind heads will begin to spawn on the edge of the arena, starting on north or south, that is the A or the C markers. You can do this mechanic true north, or relative to the first head. You have to check the heads anyway, so my recommendation is to do it relative to the head because you're looking that way regardless. A total of 5 heads will spawn sequentially in position either clockwise or counterclockwise of that first head. Pay attention to which direction they are spawning in, as they'll shortly shoot line AoEs and you'll need to dodge in that same direction. Clockwise heads means clockwise dodges and vice versa. Howling Blade will cast Aero 3, a knockback which you can immunity if you want to. I actually use my immunity here, and either all 4 supports or all 4 DPS will be targeted by small circular spread markers. Spread into your light parties with 4 going left and 4 going right, relative to that head of course, and if you have an AoE marker, get knocked to an intercardinal. Tanks and range spots to the intercardinals close to the first head, and healers and melee to the intercardinals far from the first head. You can use the markers for reference. Those without marks can be knocked to or stay at D and B, and when they have resolved, they will swap place with their buddies because they will also receive AoE markers afterwards. Safely take these AoEs whilst avoiding the rotating line AoEs from the heads, and be careful because it's quick. The boss will then cast another Aero 3 and spawn 4 heads that will tether to 4 players, either all supports or all DPS. Those players need to stretch their tethers by getting knocked directly away from them, which will result in them ending up behind the opposite dragon head. That's the correct position to be in. 4 towers will also spawn, which need to be soaked by the unmarked players. Once more, get knocked to the tower within your coloured marker based on your colour quadrants. If one tower goes off, it will do heavy group damage and apply a heavy dot. This is survivable even in week 1, so healers adjust if you need to. Tracking Tremors is after this, a stack marker that all 8 players should share. It hits heavily 8 times in a row. Raid-wide follows, and Great Divide comes after that, which is a shared tank buster. You can take it with cooldowns as a team of 2, or you can invuln it. Terrestrial Titans is the next major mechanic, spawning 2 massive towers straight out of the slice's right. He'll cast Titanic Pursuit, dealing a small amount of damage and cracking both of the towers. There will be 1 small safe spot on 1 of the numbered intercardinal markers here, so wait in the middle until you know where it is. Firstly, you want to check the blue cracks on the towers. One of the markers that are in line with these cracks will be the safe spot. They will always be opposite one another. In this example, it's 4 and 2, which is behind the left tower. Then, 2 gleaming fang lasers will spawn and begin to cast Fanged Crossing. One will be plus-shaped and the other X-shaped. You want to search for the X-shaped one and run to the marker that's next to it out of the 2 you noted beforehand. Then watch everything crumble down around you. Another revolutionary or eminent rain will follow. It will always do the pattern you didn't see earlier in the pull. As tactical pack casts, the boss should be sub 50% if you're hoping to be in rage, and he'll become untargetable as ad phase begins. Here, a Wolf of Wind and a Wolf of Stone will spawn, and each will tether a tank, healer, and 2 DPS. You want to run away from your tether to the opposite head. The big glowing circle in the middle is about to become very unsafe. After a big rock smashes the middle, the 2 wolves become targetable and debuffs are applied to players. Firstly, you can only attack the wolf you were not tethered to, which is convenient because it's the one you're standing next to. Secondly, each non-tank player will have a little wind orb or earth block debuff with a timer. Debuff timings will begin at either 20 seconds, 36 seconds, or 53 seconds. You'll also notice that a big earth cube and wind orb have spawned on the north and south. Essentially, You need to run through the Wind Orb if you have the Wind debuff, and you need to run through the Earth Cube if you have the Earth debuff, before your timer reaches 0, but doing so applies a vulnerability to the group for 4 seconds, so you must stagger this out. The Wolf of Stone and Wind will cast Pack Predation, marking one non-tank player in each group. At the end of the cast, those marked will be shot at by a line AoE that does fairly substantial damage, and the tank will take a second cone that requires cooldowns. A lot of groups are stacking this red marker and simply having the tank in front of their wolf and the group stacked behind. In fact, the POV you can see here does that. This is fine to do, but it's important to note that this is not a shared AoE. This can be soaked by one player alone, and it's fine. So my recommendation is to have the tank stand at the wall and aim their cleave directly outside the arena, and the player walks through the wolf to be ahead of it, where the tank was, whilst the rest of the group stays. This will happen 3 times in total, 1 right at the start, and then 2 more over time. Your goal is to pop both a wind and an earth debuff in between each pack predation. At the same time, the Earth Cube and Wind Orb will rotate around the edges of the room in between pack predation casts, and thus the wolves must be dragged in the same direction as them. You don't want the wolves and the orb or cube to touch. A few nuances that are worth understanding here specifically for tanks are that the green orb will follow the green wolf, and the Earth Cube will chase the Earth Brown Wolf. So you know immediately as the first cleave and conal AoE is going off exactly which direction you'll be dragging your ads in. It's also important to note that the ads will stop moving when they cast Pack Predation. So what you want to do is actually drag your ad all the way up behind the orb or cube that you're chasing to make sure that you have ample space. So how this all plays out is simple. Pack Predation, then lowest timer green runs through and pops, then lowest timer yellow runs through and pops, once the vulnerability has worn off. Repeat 2 more times. Bear in mind that once you run through and pop your debuff, your element will switch, and thus you must attack the other wolf. Each pop will also remove 20% HP from your respective wolf. If you want a timer to use for reference, Wind debuff can pop at 10 seconds remaining on the timer, and Earth debuff pops at 5 seconds remaining, though please bear in mind that the magic vulnerability debuff is 4 seconds long. If one player is late, you will need to wait a little longer, so watch out for it, and if you're confident you can go early as well. It's important to note that if a wolf is killed before the final pop takes place, it causes an instant wipe. This happened to us multiple times in progression, even at minimum item level, so please hold DPS if your wolf gets close to 20% before the 3rd soak has occurred. Once both wolves are dead, Howling Blade becomes targetable once more and prepares multiple AoE hits into a big raid wide. No cast bar here. The arena weather changes and mechanics will begin to incorporate new elements. Terrestrial Rage casts first, which will spawn 2 gleaming fangs that will eventually shoot line AoEs. One will be on the edge of the room and the other near the middle. If you were to split the arena into 4 rows, one would be the first row and the other would be the third to help you visualize it. You want to look at the gleaming fang on the edge. This is your new north for the next 2 mechanics. 4 players, either all supports or all DPS, will receive spread AoEs, and those that don't will get either a stack indicator or nothing, a 4-man stack, and 4 spreads. The spreads will go into the second row, close to the north gleaming fang, and spread out there. The ranged or healers will go to the walls, with a melee or tank staying closer to the middle. You can actually use the intercardinal markers as a clear reference point for this for the ranged or healer spreads. You just stand on the tip of the marker and you're perfectly placed. The stacks and nothings will stack together in the 4th row, far from the north gleaming fang. As the gleaming fangs execute, dodge into them as your mechanic resolves. Now the roles will swap. If you had stack or nothing, you'll get a spread, and if you had a spread, you'll get stack or nothing. Those with the new stack or nothing can immediately walk to the relative north, exactly where the gleaming fang used to be, and stand there. Players that are now spreads can spread to their relative intercardinals on the wall, ranged and tanks, northwest and east, melee and healers, southwest and east. Shortly after, Howling Blade clones will spawn in the middle of the room and prepare a Shadow Chase cast. You need to be behind one of them. If you've positioned as stated, you'll either directly be behind one already or right next to one. If you're behind one, you stay, and if you aren't, everybody rotates clockwise to the next wolf. Then finally, green wolf heads will spawn in the spots that were previously unsafe. Simply step to either side so that you're standing behind one, and watch the attacks resolve as the boss becomes targetable once more. Another random Eminent or Revolutionary Rain follows this, though this one has the added foil of spawning 2 Wolf of Stone heads right at the end that will shoot line AoEs. Deal with this as you do in both of the previous iterations, just remember to dodge the wolves immediately after the cleaves go off. Another tank buster comes next. Beckon Moonlight is the last major mechanic of Phase 1, and it can be pretty overwhelming at first. 4 clones of Howling Blade will spawn one by one and dash to the edge of the arena, displaying a laser sword that will cleave one half of the room shortly. This is just like in normal mode. They will always spawn either in a clockwise or anti-clockwise rotation. You won't get, for example, a north clone then a south clone. This helps to make the upcoming challenge easier to read. Firstly, find the safe half of the arena from the first cleave and go there. Then the same role-based spreads, nothings and stack from the previous mechanic will happen once more. The spreads need to spread along the wall like so, with the stack and nothings stacking inside the boss hitbox on the safe half of the room. Then after these resolve, almost immediately the cleaves will begin to go off one by one. Your goal is to dodge them sequentially and prepare for a second set of spreads and stack with reverse targeting that needs to be handled immediately after the 4th and final half-room cleave goes off. There's a few ways you can handle this because aside from the stack and spreads part, this is a solo mechanic and you do not need to coordinate with others as long as you make it to your final position in time. You can either just eyeball it and dodge each one individually, which works, but can be tough to do. Alternatively, you can set up in position for the first stack and spread, then look specifically at the second and third clones. There will always be 1/4 of the arena that is safe from both of their attacks, so after the first cleave goes off, go into that quadrant and use the additional time you're afforded to sit there, take a few seconds and carefully figure out how you're going to dodge the 4th cleave and get into that final stack or spread spot. Right after the last spread and stack finishes, Wolves of Stone will spawn on the intercardinals and prepare to shoot line AoEs. Dodge to any cardinal on the wall to avoid these, and then prepare for another Windfang or Stonefang, just like at the start of the fight. Resolve this just like you did then. Another tracking Tremors stack damage follows, then a raid wide, then the final Enrage raid wide cast. If you reduce the boss to 0.1% HP, you'll get a cutscene as your reward and transition into the second phase. New HP bar, new set of mechanics, and of course, new arena. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about the encounter or any mechanics in particular, please do feel free to ask in the comments section. Now, this is only phase 1 of the fight. There is a phase 2, and I have a separate video available on the channel here for that. If you're watching this on the day of release, it'll be up in about 24 hours. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Good luck with your clear.